Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. My name is Netalina Nasruddin. I am the host of the Rise Up For You podcast and the founder of Rise Up For You. And today I am super excited to bring on a longtime friend who's amazing, who is actually on like episode 10 of Rise Up For You, like 5 years ago when I first started the business. And we've just built an amazing friendship. And I'm so excited to see you to continue to grow and all the cool stuff that you're doing. So please welcome Kimmy Seltzer to Rise Up For You. Tell us about you and what you do. Brag a little bit about to the audience, those that haven't heard about you before.
Do I have to? Can't you brag about First of all, that's crazy that it was episode 5.
Yeah, it was like, right.
Yeah, no, that's really crazy. And we have grown so much. And I love always that your podcast has been about rising up and confidence, because it is such a synergistic thing with what I do when it comes to dating. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll say my titles first, but then kind of go into what I do and why I got to do what I do. But I consider myself actually an authentic dating strategist these days. And I'll explain why that is. I'm a confidence therapist and I'm an image consultant. So all that's a mouthful to say is that I have a holistic approach in helping people look and feel their best so they attract what they want. And at the end of the day, it is all about confidence, right? So that is kind of the professional, and obviously, like, you know, the stuff in my bio and like your bio, right? Like it's I feel blessed that I've had such rich experiences to help other people. But honestly, I mean, the real reason why I do what I do is because of my own story. I had to go through my own stuff to rebuild my confidence. And so I don't know if you want me to share a little bit about that as we get into it.
Tell us, because I think it's important, especially those that are listening, that, sometimes we think that we see people and we're like, wow, like that's the finish line, but they don't understand like the pain, the process, that you went through to get there. And I've always been a big fan of what you do because, I understand there's a big component with dating, but you're absolutely right. Like the way that you show up, not only internally with your confidence, but also like your image and how you put yourself together, it makes such a difference. I would say in every relationship, romantic relationships, business relationships, corporate relationships. But tell us, a little bit about your journey and your story, because I think it's important for the audience to know, like, you didn't just build this bad boy out of millions of dollars that you had laying around.
Well, not only that, people hear I'm from LA and I have blonde hair and blue eyes, and they're like, oh, she's just a stylist. And it's like, oh, just wear this and you'll be more confident. It's like, no, I've been through, and I do agree with you. Like our adversity are gifts in disguise. And it's not until we're through it, we look back and we say, there's the gift. And that is really where I started learning to truly help people. Because backing up, I worked as a therapist for many, many years back in Chicago. That's where I'm from. And I lived a very traditional life, right? I had the picket fence and the dog and the kids and the husband. I still have the kids, but you see where the story's going, as I always say, right? And so everything was going on as planned. It was a very kind of, I thought my life as I knew it was just going to be my life. And here's the kicker about the confidence thing is that I considered myself a pretty confident person. I mean, I was happy with my life, happy with myself, and happy being a parent. Now, then we pick up and we move across the country to La La Land, Los Angeles. We land here. And that's where the record stopped. We decided to do what all the other people here do, get a divorce. I mean, joke, obviously, like,
yeah, sure.
There were issues, going on in the story. And I like to blame LA, but the truth is I would have been here anyway. And really what I think happened is when I was reflecting on it, you know how like when you're kind of going through the motions and the humdrum of your everyday life, you often get insulated with things where you're not faced with things that maybe you're covering up. And that I think happened. And when I was removed from my support system, my cushy cocoon, we were faced with each other. And that's when everything kind of surfaced. And so there I was all alone in this new land. not knowing what to do with my new life. And it was a dark period, I have to say. And I would not be wearing this red shirt if you knew me back then. I back then was wearing all black. At the time, I didn't really think anything of it, but now I realize it was a way of hiding, and everything was too big on me. And I was still wearing the nursing bras. I wasn't even nursing any longer, and the flip flops and the disheveled hair. Like, you get the picture. It was not sexy. And here I am supposed to go out and like date and feel confident. And it's like, it was like all my confidence in that moment in time just was shattered to the ground. And I really didn't know how I was going to pick up the pieces again. In fact, often I would go back to bed and just want to give up. And here's the kicker, and I know you'll get this, is that I'm a therapist. I mean, I should know better, and I did all the traditional things that everyone said that you should do, including myself. You got to do the work. You got to work from the inside out. You got to feel good about yourself. And I did the work, and I went to counseling, and I did all the traditional things, but nothing was working. And so I'll never forget, and this is where everything changed, not only in my life, but the way that I think and help others, is I took a hard look in the mirror one day. I don't know why that particular day, but I really saw myself as this frumpy mom who was really sad. And I was fed up. I was like, enough of this. Like, I need to go feel better about myself. And I'm going to do something really untraditional. I'm going shopping. That's what it is, shopping therapy. So I go shopping, and I think I'm up-leveling myself by having new clothes, but no, doing the same thing. All the black clothes are being put in my arms, and probably 3 sizes too big. And this personal shopper, she came up to me, and I now refer her as my guardian angel. And she said, "Ma'am, I've been watching you, and I really think you should try this on." And she holds up this red dress that looked like 3 sizes too small. And I said, "That's really sweet of you, but it's not my size, and it's so not my color." She says, "Honey, that is your color. That is your size. Try it on." And it was like, bam, she hit me over the head with that red dress. And then when I came to, I call it my red dress moment. I was like, she's right. I'm doing all this thinking, all this analysis paralysis, and I'm not feeling. And so I slipped into the dress. I twirled around like Cinderella, and bam. And there I was. Like, I really thought I saw a princess before me. And that image of myself, I just hadn't seen in a very long time. And I decided to buy that dress that day, almost as a costume, because I still didn't believe it. And I went out into the world, and I wore it. Like, this is where it all started. I wore that red dress everywhere I went, to the grocery store, to the coffee shop, to dates, to like anywhere I could. And here's the kicker. I noticed men noticing me, and I didn't like it. I was like, wait a second. Here, this whole time, I'm like, oh, I just want to date. I want to feel good. And I recognized that I was scared of being seen. This really was like the black clothes were like an invisible cloak, and so that I didn't really have to put myself out there, have to be seen. And it forced me to be seen and get comfortable with myself and really take a hard look in the mirror and say, you know what? I am sexy. I am a confident girl, so that other people would see me as that too. And that is where everything, the paradigm in which I work shifted. And so now I work from the outside in, because I believe that when you learn how to market yourself in a way where people get to know who you are, it's the quickest gateway into even your inner confidence. And believe me, I do the inner confidence as well, being a therapist, but there's a symbiotic relationship between the outer and the inner when it comes to confidence. And that's where my business was born.
I love it. And I want to throw a couple questions at you as I'm hearing you talk, but I am a firm believer in what you just said. In fact, one of my top keynotes is how to be seen, be heard, be relevant. And the first thing I talk about is, owning your space, right? By that outside confidence and the outside style and the image, and wearing colors. Like, I love to wear black. I'm wearing black today, but I have a whole slew of colors in my closet as well. But you're absolutely right that a lot of people don't realize subconsciously that they're not wearing color because they don't want to stand out, right? They kind of want to like just be in their own insular bubble. and these colors and styles of clothing, whatever, they kind of keep us safe. But I want to ask you a question, because as the years have kind of gone by with like some of the new movements that are happening socially, and I'm curious if you have felt this, there are some people that say like, I don't need to dress or look a certain way. I feel like I could wear like a tie-dye t-shirt and not wear any makeup and not do my hair. And like, I should be able to land the job and get these opportunities just by being authentically me. So I don't disagree, but I do at the same time, right? Because I think, like you said, there's a certain way that we want to market ourselves. So I'm kind of just curious, like what your thoughts are. Have you ever had some of that pushback of like, why do I need to wear a dress in order to, to stand out or be seen? Or why do I need to wear color? Or why do I need to do my hair and my makeup? Why can't I just be naturally me? I'm kind of just curious on your take in regard to that and like what your thoughts are.
I love that provocative question so much, because there's a lot of layers to that. And of course you would ask me that. All right, let me start by saying this is that, and just to clarify kind of like the distinction between like what I do versus maybe like when you go shopping in a store and a stylist is helping you. What is really important to me, I'm very scientific in the way I approach clothes. I don't believe that one size fits all necessarily, and that I don't believe in cookie cutter like looks either. But it's like I have a 3C rule that I'll go over that everyone can even do at home for themselves, where it's looking at your body type, looking at your colors, looking at your lifestyle, what makes you feel confident, and wearing clothes intentionally that fits all of that. Right. So and here's the thing, it's not changing who you are. It's a marketing yourself so that someone gets to know who you are. So my first question always to people who say, well, I'm just going to wear tie dye, or, my, like, let's say it's for love, right? Like they're trying to attract a partner, whether it's a man or a woman. I work with both. My first question is it working for you? Are you attracting what you want? And if you're not, you can't change the people, but you can change things about you that will attract something different. And whether that's your style or whether that's the way that you talk to people or flirt with people. Flirting is a big part of my business too. We can get into that. There's an energy with that. And a lot of times, and as a therapist, it's really meaningful to me to understand the why. So if tie dyes are really important to you, like what is that about? Like, I'll give you an example. There was a woman who had that exact kind of attitude, right? She's like, you're not putting me in a red dress. It's not me. If a man doesn't like me for me, then, forget it. Yet she wasn't landing any dates, like literally, like she would go out. So I said, I get that. And you don't have to put on a red dress, but I'm just wondering if there's something attached to kind of the clothes that you're wearing, and how fear might be coming up around like putting yourself out there. And lo and behold, as we were like chiseling away her past, it turns out that she actually like rebelled against, being feminine. Like she had a very flirty mom, I will say that, who got a lot of attention and embarrassed her. And she didn't want to be like her mom. So she kind of went the other way and said, I'm not going to be her. Like it was like a fear that, and she didn't want guys to take advantage of her either and like her for her sexuality. She wanted guys to like her for her intellectuality. And I said, well, being sexy and intellectual, you can be both. Like in her mind, it was like one or the other. And so there was this whole like conversation that we had to have. And it wasn't until we went shopping together and she started trying on things that she never thought she would. And then she started getting feedback from men and like different people. She started shifting in the way she thought about it, the way she felt about it. And so there's not an easy answer to your question, but hopefully what I'm trying to convey is that it's really asking yourself the question, what's that about?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I love the way that you explained it as well. Okay, let's move over to some of the juiciness that you talk about. You've known me for a long time, and I'm being, very transparent. Like, this is, dating and, kind of putting yourself out there has always been like a little bit of a challenge for me. And, I'm curious your thoughts on, women that, let's say are confident,
Yeah.
women that, do put themselves together, that, would consider themselves like have a good head on their shoulders, kind, loving, that still really have a challenge. I've worked over the years. I guess I've noticed my blind spot over the years, which is the masculine and the feminine, right? Like understanding, like, okay, I'm more masculine in the business and, leadership and these kind of things. But in my personal life, like understanding how to kind of find that balance. And I've worked well with that. But, what would you say? I'm sure you get a lot of clients that like are just, smoking hot, amazing careers, living their best life, but they just can't crack the code to finding the partner, right? So, and men and women, right? It's like not gender specific. So I'd love to just, hear, like, with all your research and your experience, like, what is going on?
Yeah, oh, such a good topic. It's so funny because I'm actually speaking at a conference next week talking about why it's so hard for entrepreneurs to date and find love. And, I think there is a connection there because there's different nuances with different people. Well, and here's the thing. I'm not this cookie cutter approach coach. It's not one size fits all in the way that, people need help and what they're dealing with. Cause you're right. Like there's people who don't need help with their style and they got that going on, but here I will answer it in a ways of like how I help people. And by the way, I'd say 90% of the people that I work with are high achievers, who are like productivity, like gangbusters, like they're used to running the show and they're doing it all and, like go getter kind of women. And there is a certain energy with that sometimes gets hard to turn off when it comes to receiving. And that's part of the femininity piece. And so there's different like ways that leak. I will say that. Okay. And so one of the things that I talk about is my formula called the Charisma Quotient. And that's the name of my podcast, which you're on and you're going to be on again.
Yes.
And I love the word charisma because it kind of summarizes the thing that I'm really teaching, because really charisma is an energy that just draws people to you. And then from there, obviously, there's other nuances to it. But what's so cool about it is that research shows that it's something that is learned. It's not something that people are necessarily like just come natural to. I mean, babies are charismatic but naturally, but then filters happen and things happen over time where the environment shapes that.
Yep.
And so within the Charisma Quotient, I work on 3 pillars. And no matter who I'm working with, after taking a history, that's the first thing that I do as a therapist, understanding people's journey and really detecting kind of patterns. That's why I'm calling myself a strategist these days, because I just believe we all fall into habits based on like our ascribed roles, our family system, all of that stuff. And I know you teach that too. But then, looking at your patterns and your histories and putting strategies into place to override some of these habits in 3 areas of the Charisma Quotient. One being your style intelligence, I call it. And so it's not style intelligence, by the way, isn't just the clothes that you wear. It's how you wear it. It's your energy. It's your nonverbal communication. It's your body language. So like you could dress, for instance, like I once worked with a woman who dressed really well, but her body language was very masculine. So even though she appeared feminine in the way that she dressed, her movements and her energy was very da 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 da, like kind of staccato.
Interesting.
Right. And so
Yeah.
and actually, and she admitted, she's like, well, I've been using these dresses as a way to feel more feminine, yet the movement in her body was not feminine. And so like she would do like kind of, movements like this and then she would talk really loud and like, like this. So the tonality of your voice is even considered a nonverbal cue. And just working on softening her and being more sing-songy and having more flow. And like I have a dating retreat coming up, and I've been doing these retreats now for a while. And I love it because I bring in this guy who's a salsa dancer, and we work on masculine and feminine energy with each other. It's co-ed. And because there's so much movement in the body that gets missed, especially with high achievers. And I think there's a connection there, because if you think about it, if you're a high achiever and you're a go-getter, that's very cerebral. That's in your head, and it's outcome oriented, right? And so when it comes to dating, it's actually the opposite. It's letting go of the outcome. It's being present. It's not worrying about what's next. And that's what flirting is all about. So that's why there's like sometimes a rub there with that energy, you know? So again, that's kind of the outside. And then the second pillar, and you do a lot of teaching on this as well, is the emotional intelligence, how we express ourselves, vulnerability, authenticity, how we let people in. And I believe that's a strong component to attraction, because a lot of times people will maybe stay safe and surfacey with their conversations on date and not allow someone to really feel them in the way they express themselves. And then the third pillar is social intelligence, which is, how we manage interpersonal communication. And that includes flirting. And so flirting is a really interesting word. It raises a lot of eyebrows. People have associations with that. That's why I love doing workshops on it, because people have different ideas of what that is. And even the way that we interact with the either the opposite sex or the same sex, whoever you're attracted to, it matters in those messages that you're sending, that you're open for business, that you are dateable, that you want to move on with that person rather than just being friendly and talkative. So there's a lot of nuances that is hard to necessarily see. And that's why I love doing kind of these workshops and seeing people in action, because that's the only time sometimes you can really shift is when it's in action.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for breaking down the 3-pillar step, because I think it's important. And there's a couple things that you said that even resonated with me that I don't think of, like like, even though you look feminine, like if my movements are staccato or sharp or whatever, because I was a performer and
right.
So
yeah.
I appreciate that. This has been a really great conversation, and I know we can keep going, but I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview.
Yeah.
And just ask you some rapid fire questions. And the first question is, if today were your last day, in the world, what's one golden nugget that you would like to leave with everybody?
Oh, enjoy yourself. I know that sounds like really, it's really almost like too simplistic, but I think we've gotten so complex that
100%.
having more simplicity and fun and play in our lives, life is too short. And even I have to remind myself of that everything is always going to be okay, even in the bad stuff and the good stuff. And I think we've gotten so serious, and the pandemic didn't help, that to have a little lightness and levity and fun is so important, because you do only live once.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We're really big on values here at Rise It For You. So I always like to ask, we have a lot of values that are non-negotiable. What's one value for you that's an absolute non-negotiable that you won't mess with it?
Honesty. That's easy for me to say. I just don't have tolerance for dishonesty. I think it's one of the core values that I instill with people I work with, people who I have in my friendship circle. Trust and that honesty is so important, because without it, there's no relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have one more question for you, but before we ask it, tell us a little bit about how we can learn more about you, where we can find you. I know you have some events coming up, so brag a little bit more about all the ways we can connect with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, hot off the press, if you're listening to this live, oh my gosh, what time is it? In 2 hours, I am doing a workshop. It's like one of 3 series. This one is First Impression Makeover. So we're going to be actually tackling a lot of the stuff we were talking about, like how to be more sexy, confident in your style and your body language. And that's happening in 2 hours. You can go to stophatingdating.com if you want to register and come join us. I mean, even last minute, I know I've usually join things last minute anyway. So love to have you. And if not, look for the other two. So just, go there and register. You can go to my website, kimmyseltzer.com, and get a hold of me there. Charisma Quotient, of course, is my my podcast. And actually, I have a free gift for all your listeners too, if you're interested, because it's based on what we were talking about. If you really want to know what your body type is, whether you're a man or a woman, I have 2 style guides, and you can just go to kimmyseltzer.com/style and pick it up, and it'll teach you how to measure yourself, and it'll determine what body type you are, what shape you are, and what clothes that flatter that shape and what clothes to stay away from. And that is the first step to build at least your outer confidence.
I love that. Thank you for that. We'll definitely put that in the show notes as well so people can download it. So my final question for you, again, thank you for being on our show, is what does Rise Up for you? As you know, that's the name of the company. What does that mean to you and for you when you hear that phrase?
What I love about that phrase is the last 2 words, for you, because it'd be a different meaning if it was just rise up. And because it all comes back to you, that you have the power to rise up, that you have the power to build your confidence. And it's not until you feel like confident within yourself, that's when others will too. And that you have complete and utter control of that. And that's empowering to me. Yeah. And so there's such empowerment in that phrase.
Awesome. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I'm so happy to see you again, my friend, and we'll connect outside the podcast. But thank you for joining us. It's been, again, a great conversation, and I know that many of our listeners will resonate with what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. Again, we're bringing you episodes every single week with amazing thought leaders and experts and business owners from around the world that are here to educate and empower you to be your absolute best. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kim.
Mwah, thank you.